Not Another Anon Story, Chapter 4, Part 2. Celestia and Luna are, of course, substantially less amused. The former mention of the two gestured with a wink for a guard, who saluted her silently as she started to speak.
Please escort my student to the castle's medical wing, and have our horn specialist look her over.
The guard gave a nod and another salute before gesturing for Twilight to follow, who gave Inon a slightly apologetic look before allowing herself to be led off. "Bye, Twiggles," he said with a small smile, as he waved at her as she walked away from the train station. "I'll see ya after you get your horn all straightened out," he said, finally no longer able to suppress a chortle which broke out into full laughter as she left audible range, looking visibly embarrassed by his parting comment. His laughter was cut short by the two princesses looking down at him with mild disapproval.
And what exactly is so humorous about our sister student's predicament, human?
Luna asked with a small scowl. He managed to get his titters under control, wiping away a tear. Okay, alright, first off, I'm gonna need you to stop calling me human. Yes, that's how it's pronounced. Human, not human, he said, as he waved a hand while he spoke. And second off, I have a name. Unless you want me to start calling you both Sun Butt and Moon Butt respectively, you should start using it. Again, my name is Inon. Celestia's jaw was more or less on the floor, as Luna steadily became visibly more and more irritated by the way he was speaking.
And what, prithee, do you feel gives you the right to address us in such a disrespectful way, to bestow unto us a title referring to our hindquarters?
A better question is, what gives you the right to act like you are exempt from getting roasted over your bad manners? He said, with a small shrug, smirking at her now. Despite them being taller than the other ponies, he still had a good head or two on them, and looked down at them with a smug expression, crossing his arms.
What do you mean? We are the Princess of the Night. We are one of the eternal rulers of this realm. How dare you mock us so flippantly? She demanded, stomping the ground firmly as she stared back up at him, unwaveringly in challenge.
Eternal ruler? I didn't vote for you. I'm only here because Twilight promised me I would get paid for letting your scientists get to study me, he said, tilting his head and giving a small non-committal shrug. Celestia decided to cut in and speak as well.
One does not vote for Princess Inon. That is not how that works,
she said, with the tone of a mother whose patience is still hanging in there but is expected to be running quite thin by the end of the day. Alright then, so how exactly did you become princesses? He asked almost rhetorically as he tapped his foot, feeling a bit frisky now. Yeah, he had been on the fence about it, but seeing them act this way had sealed it. He was going in. Celestia smiled almost fondly as she recalled the memory, looking up more at the sky than the strange creature that she found herself inexplicably defending her right to rule to.
It was a very long time ago. After we had managed to defeat the spirit of chaos, discord, with the elements of harmony, we took the burden of lifting the sun and moon from the poor, overworked council of unicorns, who had been performing the task for years. After our act of supreme benevolence, all three kingdoms surrendered their right to independent rule over the next few years. And then, we became the rulers of a united equestrian kingdom.
What? That's... Listen. Attractive female equines slaying monsters and moving celestial bodies is no basis for a system of government, he said flatly, much to the apparent horror of the two diarchs. Authority is derived from the continuously affirmed consent of the governed, not from some farcical arcane ritual.
Okay, I think that is quite enough,
Celestia said in a much more irritated but still patient tone as she looked up at him, narrowing her eyes slightly. I mean, you can't expect to indefinitely wield supreme executive power just because you defeated some villain of the weak-ass motherfucker with a magic MacGuffin 1,000 years ago, and decided to ease the burden of the general populace in doing a necessary celestial function.
Be silent, whelp!
Luna demanded more assertively, raising her voice slightly and stomping to the ground, cracking the floor under her. I mean, if I suddenly decided to declare myself God Emperor just because I kicked some evil dark god in his bits and started moving around Mars with my mind, they'd fucking put me away. At this point, Celestia could take it no longer. She roared and leaped forward, rearing up on her hind legs as she hugged Inon around his waist, and started aggressively shaking him.
Shut up, shut up, shut up! I order you to shut up!
She screamed into his ear, in a voice far louder than should have been able to come out from her little pony mouth. Oh, now we see the violence inherent in the system, Inon said as he was shaken back and forth like a box of particularly cynical Tic Tacs. Everyone, come and see the violence inherent in the system! Sadly, before anyone had a chance to come and see the violence inherent in the system, Celestia's vehement shaking slowed, and then stopped. A soft, dry groan could be heard from her, as her mane faded in color, and then receded into her head as her youthful visage gave way to the wrinkles and roughness of age in a matter of seconds. Her very eyes seemed to dry and shrivel slightly, as the sun began to dim, swell, and redden until, with wide-eyed horror, she realized what was happening, and pulled herself away from him while pushing him away, her face absolutely alight with what could only be described as higher-level existential terror. Inon suddenly found himself surrounded by at least 24 very displeased-looking guards, all poised and ready to strike if provoked or ordered. Celestia neighed mindlessly in sheer terror repeatedly, as her withered body stumbled away from him and slowly began to recuperate. As her physical body recovered, the sun returned to its former brightness, size, and hue, her mane returning to its former splendor as the terror more slowly left her face, replaced by wide-eyed shock.
You were right. I mean to say that Twilight was not exaggerating,
she said softly, her voice hoarse. Fucking puns, she said softly, her voice hoarse from all the screaming. Yeah, she really wasn't. Are you okay? That looked incredibly brutal, he said as he brushed himself off and straightened out his clothes. And you might want to call them off. I don't mean to tell you how to do your job, some more, but I don't think any of us wants to find out what happens next if one of your ponies gets my blood on you. We figured out on the train that the reason this happens is because my species' blood is iron-based instead of copper-based.
Iron? Blood?
Celestia's eye twitches slightly at this, her guards all taking a notable few steps back, looking at each other unsurely. It was safe to say that they were not getting paid enough to deal with this bullshit.
Okay. Guards, back to your posts,
she said flatly, giving a small defeated sigh as her guards all quite happily scattered, and went back to their previous posts around the building. Celestia gave him a long-suffering, deeply unamused look.
I apologize for my outburst. Though your behavior was most atrocious, I am a princess, a ruler of this realm, and as the only member of your species in our land, you are technically the sole representative of your species, and therefore a valued guest of the crown. I should have conducted myself more properly and been less forthright in my objections to your assertions.
He shook his head and raised his hands. Hey, it's no skin off of my back. A big portion of my species has an ingrained problem with authority, to be honest. It's a long story that we can get into later if you want. This was, of course, not a good time to bring up the guillotines. I can only speak for myself, and if you treat me with the same respect that you would treat one of your equals, I will treat you the same. Otherwise, I'll treat you with however much respect that you treat me with. I just want to be super clear about the fact that I do not see monarchy as a legitimate means of governance. The two of them shared a mildly surprised and confused look, Luna deciding to chime in this time.
It is most forthcoming of you to admit that so freely in front of us, Anon. Do you not worry for your safety, so brazenly declaring yourself an enemy of the state?
He gave a small shrug. I'd found out that honesty is generally the best policy in situations where your power over your situation is limited. I'm here for a specific purpose, and after I'd fulfilled that purpose, I have no intention of doing anything but living my life in whatever way satisfies me the most at any given time. I have no plans to violently overthrow your government, he said truthfully, as he looked down at the two of them softly. If I'm upfront about my feelings on the matter now, it will avoid any potential comical series of misunderstandings later on. You ponies seem really susceptible to that sort of thing from what little I've observed of your students with her friends. Celestia gave a small sigh, planting a hoof on her face.
That observation is unfortunately correct. If you wish, we can have a serious discussion about the legitimacy, or lack thereof, of our right to rule later on. It could be a fun exercise in philosophy, and I would enjoy trouncing you in measured debate. But for now, while you are a guest in our castle, could you please, as a favor to Twilight, who has an immense amount of respect for us, if not to us directly, refrain from questioning the legitimacy of our crowns openly? It is, as the ponies in the media are wont to say these days, bad optics.
He resisted the urge to shit-talk her on the subject of her beating him in a debate. She might very well, to be fair. She is apparently over 1,000 years old. He rubbed his chin for a few moments, seeming to think about it. I suppose as long as things remain cordial between us during my visit, that could be an acceptable compromise. Though, could I add one more request to it? Celestia's eyebrow raised slightly, Luna also seeming to lean in a bit with mild interest.
And what, prithee, might that be?
The Princess of the Night asked, with a still notable though more reserved, disapproving tone. Could you guys take me somewhere to get something to eat? All they had on the train were little bags of nuts and apple cider. Celestia gave a small sigh and shook her head, looking back at him and giving a tired, relieved smile.
That sounds acceptable, Inon. I think that we can do that. Please, follow us. The guards will escort us out to the dining hall back in the castle.
Pitch in, he said, smiling a bit wider as he followed behind the two princesses, who were already turning to walk away. He was then followed by some of the guards from earlier, all at a respectable distance away from each other. So, When do I get paid? At the moment, I'm left wondering what kind of food Celestia and Luna are gonna give Anon, because it's either gonna be great, neutral, or just plain ass. Now let's get on to our pearls of donators. Top donators: TacoCat598, Peter Coulthard, J Tinman, Darkside, Ponyman, and Gauntlet. Zar630, Strix, Raiden, Narwhals, Black Moonheart, Drake Lovedragon, Pastel Skies, Dospo, Madman Stan, Delta Omega, Jack Cadge, RuneScythe9852, Hunter Norman, Dash of Evergreen, Rhiny Dragonwolf, Tall Rasha, The Toilet Snake, Sword Brother and Mordred, Ronin Wandering, Random Person Man Guy, Easy, Sky Uchiha, Leslie Prickett, Jordan Peterson, Crimson Kitsune 9, Lightskin, Monster Kitty, Tim Bob, Starlight Glimmer, Lightning Blitz, Squiddy Boy, David E. Sanchez, Soul Dragon, Gaggy, Trey, Shadow Drake, Joe Piercy, Hunter Mara, Alex F, Rainbow Dash, Teal'c Anderson, TV Killer, John Becker, Leon Reynolds, Raven Speedster, Zach Rakau, Mystery CU, Edgar Garcia, One Kingdom 1, Nissa Rusan, Vazuri, Dyslexic Character Sheets, Just a Random Boy, Hodrick Plincart, A Crazy Person, Ponyman365, Neapolitan, 6 of 9, Shyfire, Stamp, and Dion Baseri. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and live life to the fullest.